live, and we're back with another Forge live podcast with my good friend and business partner, Jim Brown. And where we come at you guys every single week, and we're talking health, fitness, and anything related to health and fitness, from physical, also the mental component to it. We are live every single Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know we missed last week, which we apologize about, but Jim in Florida had some hurricanes going on that threw us off a little bit, but he's safe and good to go, and we are back. So, and as always, you guys, when we're jumping on these, if you have any questions, if you have any questions, whether it's at hand of the topic that we're talking about, during these live sessions, or if you have another question that's health fitness related that you'd like to hear from us on, just type those in. We can see your questions. We can hit on those live while we're on here. So, that being said, we wanted to cover today the importance of body fat and managing your body fat, and how a higher percentage of body fat can lead to just an array of different health issues. And this is, really Jim Brown's expertise. I've got, I don't want to say expertise in it, but some knowledge in this space. But, Jim's been my long-term mentor, and I'm going to lean on him heavily to talk about this. But this has been something, dude, that I'm sure everybody else has been hearing about as well during the time that we're in with COVID and all this stuff. And for some reason, hearing how it does impact, or seems to impact, people differently with that have higher body fat levels. And there seems to be that direct correlation there. And this isn't about what we're doing today isn't about, COVID per se, but, it definitely, at least for me, got me thinking about, well, what else, can lead to that? And I've been at both extremes, some decently low body fat and health, and also, morbidly obese, so I guess at a high level, man, I don't know the best place to start this off with, but, let's just start with it, man, of why is it so important? Like, what are the negative implications of high body fat?
Well, you kind of touched on a little bit there, but as we've seen in this past, 18 months or so, and definitely in the later part of this pandemic, that being obese and overweight is a comorbidity and a significant factor of how bad you're going to react to having the virus, and what your outcome's going to be. I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but it's one of the strongest factors in if you're going to recover well, if you're going to do well with it. And that has to go with overall health. I mean, the things that come along with normal people. Well, normally when you're obese or have higher body fat, you're on the verge of diabetes. You don't handle, your endocrine system is compromised. You definitely, if you're a male, you're producing more estrogen because of the body fat. Health is impacted with that. And, it's popular these days too, to be more acceptance and all this, fat is okay movement, fat is healthy movement. Well, you can do a lab work, you can get your bloods done and look healthy, but if you're 30 or 40 pounds overweight, carrying around 30, 40 pounds of fat, you can't tell me that that's healthy, man. And finally, we have something that kind of proves that. And that was this recent thing that we all went through. If that doesn't tell you anything, then I'm not sure how to else explain or prove how it affects your health. But that being aside, carrying the extra weight, so you have to consider the implications of you carrying extra weight on your body and your joints, and what the longevity of that is. If you're doing any type of sports or movements or activity, is that going to have an effect on how long your machinery runs, or how good you're going to be able to get around when you're 60, 70, 80 years old? Of course it does. It has a massive impact on that. The number of people walking around with spine, lumbar fusions and spinal surgeries because they didn't lose weight and correct their posture and build some muscle and be able to walk around and be mobile. I mean, I don't know how many that is. There's a lot of people in that position. The impacts it has on your knees. It just goes on. It's not, your body isn't used to or made to carry around that much weight. And that goes for me too. I mean, I've had multiple injuries. I don't move the way that I should be able to, carrying around 30, 40 pounds extra weight of muscle. But that's a decision that I've been able to make and live with, and I accept the responsibility for it. Lastly, I think most of the people that experience inflammation or have inflammatory responses to foods, and you see people walk around that have extra body fat on and they seem puffy, or they look puffy all the time, like they're holding water. And that chronic state of inflammation, I think, is very detrimental to health, and in a lot of disease processes that develop and start to advance as you get older or whatever. That's a contributing factor and something that, for all intents and purposes, you can avoid and fix and remedy and reverse.
Yeah, and it just seems like not every year, but over time, at least in my lifespan, like instead of it just seems like the benchmark keeps getting risen, right? Like of what's acceptable. Instead of being like, okay, hey, like X% is where you should be for men, X% is where you should be for women. That's a healthy rate. It just seems like that number keeps getting pushed up, and maybe it's just because I guess the health experts or whoever sets those benchmarks maybe comes to realize that maybe most people just aren't willing to make those, kind of hard discipline choices in life and, dictate those. But man, it's crazy. Like a lot of people don't think that they're just overweight. Like a lot of, like what's it, 30% for a male is classified as obese, right? And there's a lot of people that think that, I'm just a little heavy, little, whatever. A good buddy of mine called me not too long ago, and he got on a body fat machine, and he was like, sent me the readings and what the people were saying. He's like, is this true? Like, this is what they're telling me. Like, he just saw himself as being a little overweight, not, never looked at, as me being obese, right? And, but I don't think a lot of people have the true awareness of what's going on internally and just dealing with realities, because the quote unquote health experts can raise the benchmark to make us maybe feel better about ourselves, but it doesn't change the fact of what's happening internally. I mean, nature's nature, right?
Right.
And,
well, if we go by that, Mark, what's healthy and what's not. I mean, we know without going down this conspiracy road that most of the stuff that we hear or, is fed to us is the exact opposite of what you want to do. If they're saying that it's okay to be 30, 40 pounds overweight, to me, that's enough indication that you don't want any piece of it.
Yeah.
And it is. It's almost like not so much now, but it was certainly being shoved down our throats there for a while. And you even see mannequins or dummies in the stores, that have fucking dad bods. They got man tits and pregnant bellies. I mean, really? That's where we're at. You got to have a mannequin to show a shirt because that's the majority of the body type that's buying it. Sad times, man.
Yeah. And I heard, and I don't know if this is, I heard from Dr. Oz. So I don't know if it's, but I mean,
it's got to be real.
But also he's a heart surgeon, right? So, I mean, maybe he knows a little bit about, body fat impacting the health and the negative implications there. And he talked about, like your waist measurement. So he didn't talk about a specific body fat percentage, but he's like, when your waist measurement gets double, like it should be half or below of what your height is. And the second it exceeds half of what your height is or more, that's where it starts to put a lot of pressure on your kidneys. And that's where you start leading to hypertension. And that's where a lot of internal, your cardiovascular system and other inflammation that leads to really just starts going to hell. And I don't know if there's truth to that. But again, I mean, I look at that, I'm like, okay, I'm 5'10". So what's that? My waist should be, 35 inches. Well, dude, like for me to be at 10, I mean, I don't know what I'd be body fat wise, but right now I'm at about 8% body fat. And my waist is like 31 and a half. So even on those numbers, like I can't, I'd probably be sitting 15 plus.
Talking about big people. Yeah. Talking about big people.
Yeah.
No, I would absolutely agree with that. The bigger your waist is, typically, the fatter you are, and the fatter you are, the more obese you are. I believe you're in a poor state of health, and that usually comes along with, pre-diabetes. It usually comes along with high blood pressure and all those things. It's just harder for your body to do its job. It just is. There's no way around it. I mean, unless you're prepping for, to be a contestant on that show alone, where you're conceivably not going to eat for 3 months and win $500,000. I don't know, man. You don't want any piece of that. And it's something that you can control. It is controllable. It is doable. You can do it. And it's something that, maybe it's harder for some people than others. But even for you and me, man, it's not like it's a fucking breeze in the park. I mean, we work at it. And there's days, I know there's days where I'm freaking hungry. I go to bed hungry. I wake up at 3 in the morning. I'm starving. But that's, for me, that's what it takes. And I'd rather have a little bit of hunger and have to face that down every now and then than, shorten my life or shorten the quality of my life. I'm 50 years old now, and I have a lot of plans to still use the machinery that I got to get around and do fun stuff that I'm interested in. If I want to climb on the roof and do something, all those things that people give up, and it starts with, or one of the ways to lose that and lose your health is to start putting on pounds every year.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people think of, body fat as, being aesthetics, right? Not necessarily understanding it's like, okay, well, if I eat decently good, I'm active, but I still have higher body fat, like I can be healthy, right? And maybe there's some truth to that, but no matter what, when you have a higher percentage of body fat, your body's just not as efficient. And we've been on so many podcasts, you and I, with optimal health physicians and so forth, and I've heard over and over of how most age-related diseases are not maybe necessarily due to, but an important part of the age-related disease comes from increased internal inflammation. And that's really what kind of spurred this topic of that internal inflammation, and the correlation of body fat. Because a lot of people think that managing inflammation is just through diet. But like, again, man, I could eat nothing but organic foods. I could, whatever, still have higher body fat, right? But eating, cleaner, as people might define it, and still have high body fat and still have internal inflammation, right? So how does body fat impact inflammation, and what do people need to have awareness of when it comes to inflammation, when it comes to overall health? Like, why is that so damaging internally, even though we may not feel it? And that's the hard part about what's going on in your body, right? It's like, you may not feel it. Like, this was several years ago, but I had some blood work done, and they're like, yeah, you got small traces of fat in your liver, and doing some glutathione injections to get rid of it and whatever. But like, I couldn't feel that. I had no idea. I felt amazing. I had no idea it was taking place. Like, it's not like we can feel this stuff always happening in our body. You can feel great and not be great internally, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's very common. And it's something that creeps up on you. When you're 20s and your 30s, is it going to affect you as much as it does in your 40s, 50s, and 60s? No, but it gets harder to come off, and the implications start to step up and have more serious consequences. Is it the key common factor in all of these diseases of aging, and is it a contributing factor? I think so. And, we've certainly talked to plenty of people who believe that. When you have a higher body fat percentage, typically you're in a state of overfeeding. When you're in a state of overfeeding, almost anything that you eat, almost anything, can make you bloated and feel like you're holding water and inflamed. And that's just not a condition that you want to exist in your body. You don't want to be in a chronic state of that. A lot of it is due, I think, because of you're in a overfeeding situation. But in that case too, it could be digestion issues that people don't face up to and own up to. How many people do you know that eat foods that absolutely destroy them in one way or the other, but they just deal with it because they really want to eat it? I don't know, spicy food or whatever it could be that bothers somebody. They just eat it anyway and deal with it. That stuff adds up, man, and it gets worse and worse. I believe, overall, if you look at everything that's out there on diet and health and biomarkers and all that, it's not one particular type of diet that improves those statistics when you start on. It's the fact that people lose that initial X percent of body fat and X amount of weight. When you do that, all your blood and biomarkers and health improves drastically. It doesn't matter if you do it with vegan, with lectin free, with the inflammation diet, the spooky diet, the ghost diet, whatever. As long as you start to lose body fat, that initial hit that you start to lose, it's going to improve your blood markers, your body, all the biomarkers, everything that we take a look at and deem as, on the road to fixing your health. And I think that's very important to consider when you're eating foods and you feel bloated, you're puffy all the time. You almost have that look like you're on pregnenolone or not pregnenolone, pregnenolone. One of the ones for inflammation. My wife's mom would always be on this stuff, and it was to get her lungs. She had edema in the lungs, and she would take this drug, and it would swell, just like chronically swell her up and make her huge and puffy. And when she got off of it, everything got better. But her doctors would put her on that to get rid of the water in her lungs. And it's almost that look that people have that are a constant state of overfeeding. It's that puffy, never goes down, never goes away look, and that's that state of inflammation that I believe is very detrimental to your health. And again, I think it's just simply for you've been overeating for 20 years.
Yeah. So then is it like what specifically is it when it comes to higher body fat or lower body fat of it? Is it just that your body, not just that you're overfeeding? Because I mean, you could start getting that under control, still have high body fat, and still might be some time before you lose that body fat to get the overall benefits, the full benefits for it. So is it that it's just harder for your body to be as efficient as possible? Or is it, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, we had a conversation around, I've been on the same TRT protocol with my physician for 6 years, 200 milligrams of test-cypionate a week, whatever. Well, then I was like, all right, dude, like I'm going to level up with my health. I'm going to, so I lost about 5% body fat, got leaner than I've been in a long, long time, really leaner than I've been psychopeded. And dude, like my testosterone went from, I don't know, let's just say an average of around 900 to 1,000. All of a sudden now I'm above 1,400 with the same level that I've been taking for 6 years before that. It just skyrocketed, right? So then, they lowered me down to 800 or 0.8 cc's a week or whatever. So 160 milligrams a week versus 200 milligrams. So it definitely, having lower body fat definitely impacted how my body handled and processed hormone, like on a hormone level. Yeah, right. Because that you always look at, the control and the variable. The control was exactly the same. The only variable was the loss in body fat. Right. Everything else was the same, and my testosterone just shot through the roof. Right. So is it also a combination of how it impacts us hormonally? That higher body
absolutely.
fat.
Yeah, absolutely. It does have an effect in men, especially on the level of estrogen that you have in your body. And I can tell you from being at, leaner and extremely lean, drugs work better in your body when you're lean. They just do. Is it a fact that fat's putting off estrogen or, leading to or throwing off something that's makes it harder? Is it just that it's harder to dissolve when you injection sites, whatever, blood flow in that area? I don't know, but yeah, hormones specifically, drugs work better when you're leaner. And we've seen that a couple times. And people, a lot of the doctors that we used to work with have very high level or high body fat percentage patients that would start on a dose and then have to have it adjusted once they got down, in single digits. So I think that's very common. But then you think about, another hormone like vitamin D. Does vitamin D act that way? Is it more efficient in your body when you're leaner? I don't know, but we could certainly jump to some far-fetched conclusions about that with the recent COVID thing. But overall, your body functions better with lower body fat, to a point. When you reach a certain point, it's not healthy and it's awful. But with a healthy amount of body fat, I think your body works better, and that would include the hormonal system, not to mention insulin reaction and all that stuff. Fatty acid liver, or adult fatty non-alcoholic fatty acid liver disease.
Yeah, and then because I mean, if you think about it, like I don't know, your body, everything that you ingest, your body's going to break down and process. Right? So then we talk about it from hormone level with a drug like test-cypionate, versus. But then you think of food as really being nothing different than a drug, if you will. I mean, it's. You think of it in that context. I know it's not necessarily that, but it's, it's just your body's breaking it down and utilizing it more efficiently, for whatever reason, when that body fat gets lower. What would you say is, if somebody, like, to optimize health, because then there is the aesthetic element, right? Of, I don't know, if you want to be freaking shredded, right? Or whatever, but what is and I don't know, I know it's going to be different for men and women, but like, what is that for people to start really seeing the health benefits and lowering that internal inflammation and so forth? Like, what is that ideal body fat to make sure that you stay at or under, both for men and women, or what would you say is?
I think for men, it'd be harder for me to call for women. I don't have a real good frame of reference for that, but somewhere, 20 and below. And there's a different scale, right? I mean, typically women are going to have a little bit more body fat than men. For men, for sure, under 15.
Yeah.
If you want to look and feel fit and be at your best and be able to perform at your best and your body be healthy, I believe it's, somewhere in 12s, maybe 12, 10%. And that's difficult. That takes some discipline to get into, but I think that's when you realize the full benefits and start to have a higher quality of life based on that. That being said, though, for the normal guy, normal person, if you're 15% body fat or lower, and you're not eating in an excess of calories every day, you don't have that inflamed feel. I think that's a pretty good target, and you should feel better. You should be at the point where you're eating food and you're not waking up bloated. You don't wake up after sleeping all night and look in the mirror and your body's waterlogged and everything's washed out. I mean, to me, that's a key indicator that I've eaten too much or I've spilled over, to use a bodybuilding term. But that means that tells me that I'm putting on fat. I'm not losing body fat, and I'm not going to feel good about it. Just my body isn't going to feel good about it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, dude. And a lot of it too is just, I mean, yeah, we got to be cognizant of what we're putting in our bodies, but I think it's important too, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but just to pay attention to, and you talked about this earlier, of the foods that make you feel like shit, right?
Right.
Like I know, and some of this is for performance and mental performance for work and so forth. Like I just start paying attention to, okay, what do I eat? What do I go eat at lunch that makes me get back to the office and essentially be unproductive and useless for the rest of the day, right?
Yeah.
Well, I know if I go eat pastas or, a big cheeseburger or something that has, and that might be, for me, it's really carbohydrates, high carbohydrate meals, dude. Like I feel like I'm in that Thanksgiving coma almost, right? And just journaling, man. It's like after a couple hours after I eat, like, okay, how'd that food make me feel? How'd that, and paying attention to that, man, because it does matter. And I'll tell you, dude, like so this was November 1st that I really decided to, level up on all fronts of this, and not just from, losing body fat and aesthetic aspect, but from an all performance. And I was like, anything that's not serving anymore, I'm getting rid of, dude. So, cut out alcohol 100% and all of these different things. And dude, that's one of the things that is best about this, not just from, the how confident, and like this weekend I went paddleboarding at the lake with the family. And, like for me, maybe I'm insecure, whatever, I don't know, but there's probably some truth to that or a lot of truth to that. But it just the confidence level and the feeling good about my body, like when I go out to the beach or whatever, especially here in Arizona when it's 115 every freaking day in the summertime. And the only way you're getting out of the house is around water. But then, dude, like I haven't felt bloated forever. Like cutting out alcohol, cutting out, a lot of refined carbohydrates and so forth. Like dude, it just feels so damn good. Like I don't have those pains in my stomach. I can feel efficient without, this is TMI, but it's like, even like, dude, like my bowel movements and like everything, I feel like a kid again. You know what I mean? Like my body's doing things efficiently, and like I'm able to utilize this machine, this vehicle that we all have to utilize to live this life with, in the way that it was designed to be used.
Well, that's why, remember, carnivore, took a big, when it exploded and everybody was doing the carnivore diet and this. Well, that works in part because you're getting rid of all the shit food in your life and you're eating a food that hardly anybody has a problem with. It's not really common, or I don't know if it's possible to be allergic to protein or be allergic to meat. You can certainly have an aversion to it, but eating lean meat, or even fatty steak or whatever, if it's something like that, and you're doing an elimination diet, you're eating one food or one food source like that. Yeah, man, people who are having all these digestive issues and all these other issues, yeah, it goes away. It's not magic. It's because you've gotten rid of all the shit food in your life, and you're probably not in a caloric, excess anymore. because it's really hard to eat that much meat a day and still be, eating 4 or 5,000 extra calories like you probably were to begin with. So yeah, all the people that I work with one on one, the clients that I've really taken and made huge changes with, I don't write out a diet plan and hand it to them like, here, eat 2 ounces of chicken and some broccoli every meal. No, we work together and find out what foods work for you, and that's what you have to do. If you're putting together something for yourself, you really should. And it might be starting with an elimination type diet where you're only eating a few things. If you're just eating meat and rice, or meat and some vegetable that doesn't give you any digestive issues for a while, let your body clean out, make sure you're in a deficit. Then yeah, 2 weeks, 21 days or something, you wake up feeling a lot different. And then you can start to add in different types of foods to see how they make you feel. To your point, you were losing body fat, you were starting to get leaner, you were leaner, you're feeling better, and then you ate you went and had pasta or something. Yeah, okay, that makes me feel bad, not doing that again. And that's kind of how you do it. That's how I do it, and build kind of food lists for clients. But being in a caloric deficit or very close to it, I believe is the best way to go through life, because a variety of reasons, where you're going to feel better, your body's going to react better, things are going to be, your bowel movements, everything's going to work better than if you're in a chronic state of overfeeding. It just does. It's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and I'm like, "Look, dude, it's actually one of my teammates in one of my companies, and he's going on his health journey." And I'm like, "Look, dude, like I've not from an experience standpoint. I'm like, look, dude, I've been mentally down, depressed, to the point where I've had some great moments of fulfillment in life, and I've been broke, poor." To having a little bit of money, and I've had success in different, from business and in different elements of life. But I'm like, dude, like nothing compares to, at least for me, man, nothing compares to when you get in great shape, you feel good about your body, and internally you feel good. I'm like, dude, I've yet to experience a feeling that comes close to matching that.
Oh, I agree 100%. I have a comfort zone that I stay in, and when I get to the north end of that, I don't feel good. I take my shirt off at the beach or whatever. Is it insecurity? Sure, whatever it is. But when I'm leaner and when I'm in shape and I feel good, yeah, everything's better. Life is better. Quality of life goes up.
Yep.
And that's something. Oh, sorry. That's something you can't buy. You can't buy that. You cannot buy that. Once you start to lose your health, it's gone, man. It's gone.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so well respected in society too. Like when you see somebody that, like, I don't know, whether it's in the gym or at whatever, when you see somebody that's in great shape, like there is just some natural respect that I think happens because that it can't be bought. Like like you see somebody that's in great shape that has abs, where like that person puts in the fucking work, right?
Yeah.
All right, so Thomas's question here, and I'm going to guess that this is more specific to what we're talking about today, to not just manage body fat, but internal inflammation and so forth. But is there a good food plan and supplement plan available?
Well, that's a long question.
Pretty loaded question.
Yeah. We've kind of talked about this before, but I would start by figuring out how many calories you're going to eat in a day. And that's going to be something like, 12 times your body weight. And that's your caloric intake for the day. And start with that and eat that for a while, 14 days, see what happens to your body. Do you feel better? Are you losing a little bit of body fat or are you gaining weight? And kind of adjust your calories up and down from there. What types of food should you eat? Well, again, I'm weighing this into what I do and most of the people that I work with, but most people want to maintain or keep muscle mass. So, and for diet wise, I would recommend that you have a high amount of protein each time you eat, and then the rest filled up with complex carbohydrates and then a little bit of fat. And I would start with foods that work very well in your body, simple foods like chicken, rice, maybe some vegetables that absolutely you don't have a problem with. And once you hit a baseline and kind of figure out where your calories are, then you can start experimenting with different types of foods and see, if you have foods that absolutely don't work well for you. Do you throw in broccoli and then you have trouble digesting it all day and you're gassy and you have heartburn maybe or whatever, well, that's not a food for you. I'd switch that out. And that's how you build kind of a food plan. You have an idea of how many calories you're going to be at. You have a list of food that you know will work well for you, and you stick with that. And then adjust as needed, up or down in calories and meal frequency, and kind of come up with a system that works for you. But is that low carb? Is that keto? Is that carnivore? Is that whole food based? I think you work from calories, total amount of calories, figure out what your maintenance caloric dose is, and kind of go from there, building on foods that work for your body.
Yeah. On a side note with that, man, what do you think? I mean, there's always wearable devices. Like I got this new Garmin watch, and on here it supposedly will track the amount of calories I'm burning a day. I mean, it's managing heart rate, shows me my pulse ox levels. It shows me, just bazillion things that it calculates. But how accurate have you found wearable devices to be when it comes to is a reliability factor to base that off of?
Well, they're getting there, man, but they're all based on algorithms, kind of if you think about a bell curve, it's based on a bell curve of whatever parameters are using. And so there's going to be, hits or misses there depending on where you're at in there. But overall, it's a good tracking device. It's a good device to keep, kind of a trending device to see what's happening. But as an overall, if your watch says, hey, you burned 2,200 calories today or whatever it is, I don't think that you're going to, match that up with caloric intake and be able to, transfer that straight over. Is it a good trending device? Yeah, I think so. Other algorithms getting better. Yes, are the more parameters that you're able to feed into it, like that Garmin watch, the more accurate it's going to be. But overall, you're still going to have to figure out what your caloric intake is going to be for the day. And if that caloric intake is going to cause you to overeat and store fat, or if it's going to cause you to, stay the same, or to burn stored body fat. And, to do that, the only way that I know how to do it for sure is to start with a kind of a guess that we talked about. You can either 12 or 10 times your body weight. Start there, track it for, 7, 14, 21 days and see what happens, and then adjust accordingly.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of different ways to measure your body fat. I mean, there's, I use this cheap little handheld electric impedance thing, and I don't know, it seems to be decently consistent, but I've heard mixed things on those versus calipers versus, do you have a preference? Does it really matter? Or is it kind of like one of those things of like, maybe you have a scale that isn't calibrated, that's off, but as long as you're using the same scale every day, if you're going up or going down.
Well, it's been a while, man, since I really dove into those devices like the one you have. Back, a few years ago, you could affect that up or down pretty substantially with how hydrated you were. Yeah, I don't know if that's still the case, but if you're doing it, same time every day, as soon as you get up, you're probably dehydrated. You're probably in a fasted state, kind of keeping all the variables that you can consistent is a good training device, probably. I'm a little bit more old school. If you really want to keep track of how much body fat you're losing, I do a one-site body fat, a caliper reading. So I'll take my weight with same scale every day, whatever, the same scale. I'll take a weight and then just one site where I hold the most fat right around my belly. I'll do a one-site caliper reading, and I use the cheap calipers from Amazon. And that tells me if I'm losing body fat or not. I'm going to be able to see in the mirror first. But if you're starting out, because when you first start a diet, it's slow going. Or if you're trying to figure out how many calories you're supposed to eat and you don't really know if you're losing body fat or not, a body weight and a caliper reading and one site where you hold the most fat just tells me, it gives me the data to kind of figure out what we're doing. That being said, most people, it's just the way your clothes fit. The mirror doesn't lie. You're going to be able to see changes. And then when you put those pants on or that skirt or whatever that was getting tight, I mean, that's the best measurement, right? Because we all want our waist to go down. And then if you're a guy, your shirts start fitting different around the shoulder and clavicle area or arms, you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. It's one thing that doing that 75 hard got me in habit of doing, but it was, doing a daily picture every day, same time, same, first thing when I wake up, just stripping out of my boxers, dude, and do a picture. Nobody needs to see them but me. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's like, dude, there's no getting around that. And I created a folder on my phone. I've just continued to work like, dude, like that is you can't get around it. Right? Like,
Mirror doesn't lie, man.
yeah,
Unfortunately, mirror
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
lie.
I remember when this is back when I was, more serious and not that I'm not serious now to working out, but when I was, competed and I was more into bodybuilding and, but I was, worked in the hospitals for a while. And so I developed some relationships with CT, like the CT scanner technicians. And we'd go in like once a month and do CT scans and then measure the internal fat and, get all gnarly with it. But, yeah, at the end of the day, as you said, man, mirror doesn't lie, and I know it sounds kind of weird and odd, but it's like, and now I have a home gym, so I'm in there working out by myself, but it's like, dude, I work out in my boxer briefs every day, right? And I'm working out, it's just me in there early in the morning, but I'm like, dude, again, it's like this, like I can't get around that. I look at it as it's like me doing a deep dive into a profit and loss statement in my business and going through expense reports and, you got to be able to do that deep dive and strip it down, where I can quickly start to see how things are looking and just doing and I know most people aren't in that position where they can, do that, or maybe they don't even want to do it. I know it's kind of a freak thing, but for me, dude, it's like shit, dude, it keeps me on track. Cause if I start getting off a few days, like I can't not see that.
Right. Well, it helps too. You're in your garage. It's 110 degrees probably. It's 6 in the morning, right? But yeah, no, to your point, man, when you get out of the shower in the morning, you take a look at yourself. I think that's a great way to start the day because, either you're going to look at yourself and go, damn, I got to be on point today, or, it could be, damn, this stuff's working and get yourself encouragement. But either way, you're going to see what's going on, and hopefully it inspires you and forces you to, inspires you to keep going or step it up.
Yeah.
But anybody can do this, man. Everybody has pants that they're, they can barely get into, or they know that, oh, these are the shorts that are going to be tight when they get out of the wash. Everybody has that. And that's really, I think that's what everybody wants, man. You want to get those shorts out of the washer or the dryer and put them on and go, oh man, fuck it. Yeah, they're loose. This is great. You can't tell me that anybody doesn't do that and has a great feeling. I mean, that's the best way to start your day.
Yeah. But I guess the moral of the conversation is, managing your body fat, having lower body fat. Yeah, of course, it's going to make you feel better, on and from a health aspect, you're just going to feel healthier, and so forth, have more energy. You're going to feel more you're just, the reality is, dude, is I think all of us, when we're in shape, and it raises that internal self-confidence that we have. But then there's so many things that we don't see. Just like I gave that example earlier of getting that blood work done. There was no way of me knowing that I had, traces of fat in my liver. Like I had no idea, like I couldn't have felt that. I didn't feel any different before I got those biomarkers checked. I didn't feel any different after I got, solved the problem, right? So there's also a lot of internal stuff that's going on that maybe you don't feel that this has huge implications on. And I think, again, as we kind of led this off with, or began this with, we just all went through this with this crazy pandemic that's still going on today. And there's been a huge correlation with how it affects people that have higher body fat. And, it's just a great way to protect yourself, from age-related diseases, and just have a higher quality of life by managing that body fat.
Well, that last thing you said, I agree with 100%, and that's really it. You have a higher quality of life. Some people like to eat, and that's the way they cope with things. And there's a whole psychological dive that we could do in that. But that box of donuts or whatever it is that you ate for whatever reason, that never works. That works momentarily, and then there's the whole cascade of negative feelings that come after that. But when you work at because this shit ain't easy, man. When you work at something, you commit to it, and you actually lose body fat. Not just the fact that you look and feel better and all those things, but the other thing, there's a sense of accomplishment. There's a huge sense of accomplishment. And overall, for I'm painting with broad strokes again, but when you're lower body fat, when you feel better about yourself, you have a greater quality life. You have a better quality life. You do, just all the way around. And it's not because you're a vain person or whatever, but we all do. when the clothes fit better, when everything, it's a higher quality life. So is it worth doing? I think so for a variety of reasons, but just overall a higher quality life, man.
Yeah, 100%. All right, guys. With that being said, we're going to wind this bad boy down or up or wrap it up or whatever we want to say there. Make sure you guys check out forgelife.com, which is our supplement company. We've got some a new release of a couple new products out that I think you guys will love. So check it out, forgelife.com. You can see what we're all about, what we have there available for you. Again, we go live every single Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think next week we're going to hit on systems and the importance of systems. There's this huge, a myth out there that people that, are healthy or go down this health and fitness journey have more willpower than others. And the reality is we all have limited willpower, right? You could develop certain systems that can allow you to be more disciplined, so you're not having to rely on willpower. We're going to do a deep dive into different systems and different things that Jim and I both do, and different things that you guys can do to set your environment up to win, so you don't have to rely on willpower. So we'll be hitting that next week. Truly appreciate you guys being here. Keep kicking ass, and we will see you next time. Peace.